恭敬大德三听，为此法会，济切众生，尽转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，殊真无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto sucheto ye alahati sanmiao sanputo che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one. 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 Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitofo, welcome back. Let me get today's slides, and while I'm doing that, does anyone have anything they want to bring up? Any questions? I know before we started, Melinda mentioned that it's very, very hard to do loving kindness. Well, if you do, just type in the chat box. Today, what we're going to do is we are continuing from last week, where we are doing mindfulness of the Dharma. We already done mindfulness of the Buddha. Now we're doing mindfulness of the Dharma. And last week we did, if you look at your screen, number one, the Dharma is skillfully presented. Number two, we obtain if we practice, we in this life. You don't have to wait until your next life, but in this rare life, you can see the benefits of the Dharma. Ron says he agrees with Melinda that it's not easy to practice loving kindness. Okay, we'll talk a bit about that. All this that we are doing is the practice of loving kindness. Okay, so all of you are here because you share certain traits. For example, your connection with the Dharma, and there's a lot of goodness there that you should take time to take stock. Yeah, you should take stock. You should be aware of the inherent goodness that you all have, and it should be something that you think about in a way that makes you feel good about yourself. Okay, all right, we'll come to that more. So this week, today, we're going to do number 3, Dharma without torment of burning. What does that mean? Okay, what does it say that? Excuse me. So it says the Dharma is without the torment of burning. I didn't put the source of this information. The source of this information is the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra by Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, or Venerable Nagarjuna. Mahaprajna means the great wisdom. Shastra means commentary. So Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra means the great commentary. The commentary itself is also great. So the great commentary on the treatise of great wisdom, something like that. All right. So it says the Dharma is without the torment of burning. These sufferings of burning are of 2 kinds. Number 1, torments of the body. Number 2, torments of the mind. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Torments. The torments of the body are fetters, prison, beatings, being put to death, etc. Torments of the mind are sadness, fear, all those unwholesome emotions that are caused by desire, hatred, avarice, or jealousy. So basically, okay, most things in this world burns. If you look at it from the perspective of someone who has attained a certain level of meditation skill and a certain level of wisdom, they look at anytime our senses receive a sensory input, is actually very uncomfortable. It's not a pleasant feeling. We don't know. Okay, for people who have not experienced meditation bliss before, and from that perspective, we actually enjoy all these sensations. The Buddha had a metaphor for it in one of the sutras. I just thought of this, so I don't have the reference. But in one of the sutras, the Buddha talked about the 5 skandhas and basically our sensory inputs. And the Buddha said, for someone who doesn't know, it is, how you say? Okay, the Buddha said, this is actually what the Buddha said. You take 2 people. One person is sick and has a lot of sores all over the body. The skin has a lot of, he has a lot of skin problems like eczema and open wounds. He said this person, in their attempt to, and all these wounds are very itchy. They cause a lot of discomfort. Itchiness is actually one of the worst things that you have to endure. So in a desperate attempt to deal with the itchiness, he says what people can resort to is to pour hot water over themselves or cold water, or sometimes they can take something that's really, really hot and apply it to the skin, all in an attempt to alleviate the itching. And then the Buddha says, but for a normal person who doesn't have this sickness, if you pour hot water on yourself, it actually hurts. So the Buddha used that metaphor to show how when people are sick, they tend to resort to painful things in trying to feel pleasure or to escape from discomfort. Whereas someone who is well, who has no sickness, actually don't need those things. They don't find it pleasurable at all. So that's one day when I find that source, I will let people know which sutra that comes from. Yeah. So in samsara, which is the world that we live in birth, in revolving birth and death, you can say that everything burns. That's why the Buddha wants us to awaken and get out of samsara, because all unskillful things ultimately lead to these outcomes. Even skillful things, good things, they still bring you back to rebirth. And because of our karma, which is fixed, we have the good together with the bad. So we cannot escape from torments of the body and torments of the mind. But the Dharma is very different. Okay, why is the Dharma different? It says in the Dharma of the Buddha, since morality is pure, the body escapes from the torments of fetters, prisons, beatings, being put to death. You don't have all this because you don't steal, you don't kill, you don't do anything with your body, you don't harm other living beings. So there's no reason that you create for yourself to put yourself in that position. And it says, since the mind has eliminated the 5 objects of enjoyment, 5 objects of enjoyment means that to do with our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body, the 5 objects, eliminated the 5 obstacles and obtained true body, it escapes from the torments of desire, hatred, avarice, jealousy, doubt, etc. And as there are no torments, there is no burning. So we don't create this mental afflictions for ourselves. Then it goes on to say, it says, moreover, the dhyanas and the pure absorptions produce joy and happiness, including all the physical sensations. These are the deeper meditation states. It says, this is why all the burning has gone away. So for anyone who's experienced that, you feel really, really comfortable. First of all, your body is very comfortable. And secondly, you feel a sense of happiness that is not from this world. That means it does not rely on any material possession in this world to make you feel that happiness. It's not a happiness that like makes you dance or jump up and down, like you're very happy in that sense. It's not like the delirious kind of happiness, but it's a happiness that's more to do with contentment. You just sit there and you don't feel like you lack anything. Is that kind of satisfaction. Yeah, satisfaction is more appropriate, and that satisfaction, because of that satisfaction comes joy and happiness. Yeah. It says, thus when a man tormented by great heat reaches a clear cool pool, the cold revives him and he no longer suffers from the heat. Moreover, whether they depend on wrong views or whether they depend on thirst, the disturbing emotions are called burnings or fever. So fever is another way to look at this. Now, when you get a fever, when you're sick, and it makes you, if you have a high fever and you're delirious, you can't really tell what's going on. Yeah. So since they are absent in the Dharma of the Buddha, the latter is called without torment of burning. Okay. So how does the Dharma do that? Okay, well, now we're going to go back to the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, which we haven't actually done for a long time. We're going to look at the benefits of knowing the Dharma, and we've done this before. This part of the sutra we've covered before in earlier classes. In this section, the Buddha says, the world-honored one again spoke to the pure youth, Manjushri, saying, Manjushri, they are living beings who don't distinguish good from evil, who indulge in greed and stinginess, and who know nothing of giving or its rewards. They are foolish, ignorant, and lack the foundation of faith. Which reminds me, I have a story for you all today, connected with what we are reading now. And okay, let's continue. It says, they accumulate much wealth and many treasures and ardently guard them. When they see a beggar coming, they feel displeased. When they have to practice an act of charity that does not benefit themselves, they feel as though they were cutting a piece of flesh from their body, and they suffer deep and painful regret. So in terms of giving in the Dharma, there are 3 kinds of giving. the giving of wealth, the giving of Dharma, and the giving of fearlessness. Wealth is possessions. You give people money, you give people things. That's known as the giving of wealth. Giving of Dharma is what we are doing now. I'm trying to give the gift of Dharma, although it's not my gift to give. It comes from the Buddha, but I'm a, how you say, as it passes along, I'm one of those hands, and all of you can share in that as well. Whatever you learn, as you put it into practice, other people can benefit, and you can also share what you know. And then the giving of fearlessness in particular is more like Guanin's practice, where through your skills, either through the Dharma, or let's say if you are a lawyer and you give very good advice, you take people's fear away. So the three things you can give: wealth, Dharma, and fearlessness. So why are people like this? Why are people selfish and they don't know how to give? Loving kindness is another way of giving. Okay, so we'll come to that. Loving kindness. It's because they lack the foundation of faith. And in the Dharma, faith means two things. That means confidence in the Dharma that it works. They don't have the good roots to make them accept the Dharma, number one. Number two, they don't have confidence in themselves. Ultimately, they don't see that whatever they can do will come back to themselves in skillful ways. Yeah. So they just don't have that confidence in both ways. Yeah. So the Buddha says there are other innumerable, avaricious, and miserly living beings who hoard money and necessities that they don't use even for themselves. How much less for their parents, wives, or servants, or for beggars? So you're selfish to the extent that you won't even spend on yourself. At the end of their lives, such beings will be reborn among the hungry ghosts or animals. If they heard or if they hear the name of that Buddha, Medicine Master, Vaidurya, like Tathagata, in their former human existence, and they recall that Tathagata's name, for the briefest moment while they are in the lower destinies, they will immediately be reborn in the human realm. So hearing the name takes, you can take it to be literally, or you can also, as how we just covered mindfulness of the Buddha, hearing the name you can also take it to be that you understand the Buddha. You understand what the Buddha is doing, what the Buddha represents in terms of mirroring your potential. That also counts as hearing the Buddha's name. Okay, all right. Says, moreover, they will remember their past lives and will dread the sufferings of the lower destinies. They will not delight in worldly pleasures, but will rejoice in giving and praise others who give. They will not begrudge giving whatever they have. Gradually, to those who come to beg, they will be able to give away their own head, eyes, hands, feet, and even the entire body, to say nothing of their money and property. So this is one of the benefits of understanding the Dharma, or being mindful of the Dharma, to the extent that when you plant those good seeds, even if, say, you forget your practice and you become very stingy, just hearing the name of Medicine Master Buddha is enough to activate those past seeds, and then you get yourself out of that hole that you have. So what I have next is from the Iti Utaka. It's a collection of short sayings by the Buddha. It's called The Benefits of the Dharma, and I shared this before. The Buddha says, because if beings knew as I know the result of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would they allow the stain of meanness to obsess them and take root in their minds. Even if it were their last morsel, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared it. If there was someone to share it with, or it doesn't have to be a human, it can be a dog or a bird. But because as beings do not know as I know the result of giving and sharing, they eat without having given, and the stain of meanness obsesses them and root in their mind. So the Buddha can see cause and effect in action. The Buddha, not in action, the Buddha can see the whatever deeds that you plan right now, the Buddha can see the future results. That's why he's the Buddha. So because of this understanding or wisdom, which we all lack, the Buddha understands how important it is to give, to share, but we don't. But now we do, because we have, we know the Dharma. So we can be mindful of that. So anytime you share something, you can be mindful of that. What you are sharing will come back. Okay. So the Buddha talks about, and then we're going to go into the story. The Buddha talks about having given much food as offerings to those most worthy of offerings, the donors go to heaven on departing the human state. Having gone to heaven, they rejoice, and having and enjoying pleasures there, the unselfish experience the result of generously sharing with others. Okay, so now as we are learning about loving kindness, we are also learning about cause and effect, because we how you say, sorry, I'm just distracted by Ron's question. Ron's question is, can one do a meal offering at any hour of the day? Can one do multi-meal offerings in a day? Okay, we'll come to that. Okay, so where was I? What was I saying before I got distracted? Okay, I know I have the story right now. I want to talk about the story. So knowing about cause and effect, okay, knowing about cause and effect will prevent us from doing unwholesome things or unskillful things that will make us regret, or that will make us undergo unwholesome situations and afflictions in the future. Such as what? Okay, since we are talking about stinginess, okay, so I have this story. There was a man, a very rich man, and he was so rich, and that there was a particular king, King Pasenadi, during the Buddha's time, gave him a village, and he became the lord of the village. This is like in the UK, you have lords where you own, or barons where you own a certain amount of land, and then all the poor villagers come and have to work for you, and you tax them, and the king taxes you in return, but you have all the farmers working for you, something like that. Okay, so he was the lord of a village, and because the name of the village was Tudi, he was known as Todeya. I think Todeya means like mayor or village or something. But Todeya was a very, very stingy person. So just like how the Buddha described in the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, he never gave anything away. He looked down on mendicants, people who practice, and he scolded them. And he even discouraged other people from giving alms. That's how stingy he was. And yet he had a hoard of treasure. Although he never, so he was a classic case of a stingy person. He never spent money on himself. He was even reluctant to spend money on food and clothing. So if you look at him, he doesn't look like anyone rich at all. Yeah. He would invite his relatives to his house twice a month, it is said in the sutra. But in front of them, in front of his relatives, he would give his son advice. He said, just as he says, a cake of coal. A cake of coal, I think, is like a makeup kind of thing. So you rub it on your eyes. So just like this cake, as you use it, it wears away with constant use. So does one's wealth decrease when one gives to others. Okay, which is a total opposite of what the Dharma teaches us. So anyway, he says you cannot give, don't give. In front of his relatives, he's not shy at all. That's what he teaches the son. So what does he teach the son? He says, look at termites. Termites, they work very hard to collect grains of sand, but with these grains of sand, they can build a huge house for themselves. Or just like the bee works very, very hard. They go to different flowers, they collect nectar, but they have all this honey that they have. Yeah. Do bees eat their own honey? I'm not sure. So anyway, this is how stingy he was. Okay, Ron, do you have something you wanted to ask? Your mic is unmuted.
Sorry, Foster, I'm sorry. I just by accident. I'll do it later when you have the question and answer period.
Okay, all right. Okay, so what happened was this. He died. Okay, Todea died. And unfortunately, because of his stinginess, he was reborn as a dog in the same household. Now, there are few versions of this story. For example, Shufu says that he came back as a dog because he was so stingy, he buried treasure. Okay, all the stories have the same, share the same thing. He was so stingy that he buried his treasure. So Shufu says that he came back as a dog because he couldn't let go of the treasure. And upon the time of his death, he was thinking about his buried treasure. So he came back as a dog to guard the treasure. But the other versions don't say that. So anyway, the Buddha one day walked past the house. And the Todeya, who used to look down on the Buddha, because he was a Brahmin, he was a fire worshipper, so they were not friendly with the Buddha, most of them. So the dog saw the Buddha, came to the gate and started barking at the Buddha. So the Buddha said, Todeya, not only now, but in earlier births, do you receive me and my disciples in such a manner? That means in a very disrespectful manner. You now reap the results of those deeds, and not content, you still bark at me. And says, do you know such conduct will result in a birth in the hell realm? So when the dog heard this, the dog understood what was going on. And the dog understood that the Buddha knew who he was in his past life. So the dog became really sad. Now, I forgot to tell an important point in the story. When the dog was reborn in the household, his son, okay, Todeya's son, and the dog had a very strong bond. The son took really good care of the dog, and it was because of the affinities that they had. The son didn't know that he was his old father, but there was just a connection where he liked the dog very much. So he would pamper the dog, have a very nice bed for the dog to sleep on, and give the dog very good food. Then when he came back, he saw that the dog wasn't sleeping in his previous place, in his nice comfortable place, but the dog was seemed very sad and was lying down in a very dirty place. So he asked his servants, he said, what's going on? Why is the dog acting this way? So the servants told him what happened. He said, the Buddha came by and the dog started barking at the Buddha. And this is what the Buddha told the dog. And he said, the Buddha called the dog your father's name. So this made the son, whose name was Suba, very, very upset. So he went to look for the Buddha to find out, he loved the dog so much, he said, how can the Buddha do such a thing? And how can the Buddha call my dog my father's name? So he went to see the Buddha to seek clarification. So as he was walking towards the Buddha saw him coming. And then the Buddha told the monks, he said, if you observe the son of Todeya, Suba, he is full of anger and animosity right now as he's coming towards me. And if he were to die right now, he said, after the breakup of the body, he would re-arise in the ceaseless hell, having fallen into a bad destination. So this is why loving kindness is very, very important. Because in the Shurangama Sutra, the Buddha explains how the role of emotion and logic has to do at the point of death. Okay, the role of emotion and logic at the point of death, how it influences the person's next rebirth. So if someone is constantly practicing and they have loving kindness, they have confidence in themselves, and they have less attachments, at the point of death, if you have more logic, logic means uh, less emotion. Okay, yeah, less emotion. So you have, okay, what does have more logic and less emotion mean? It means, say someone comes and slaps you, you don't get upset. You are paying attention to your own mind, you're understanding your own thoughts, and you are able to control yourself. That means having logic. Okay, you don't give in to emotion. So if you have more logic, at the time of your death, you can rise up. Joy and happiness is part of that as well. Like there's this frog listening to the Dharma given by the Buddha. Someone steps on him, he died. But because he was listening to the Dharma and he was filled with joy, he was reborn in the heaven. Okay, like that. So loving kindness is very, very important. And what happens when you have 50% logic, 50% emotion, you get reborn back as a human. So that's why human beings are the way we are. But if you have a lot of emotion, you fall into the animal realm. So that's why, say like dogs, for example, since our story is on dogs are very emotional. They are very instinct based. It's very hard for them to concentrate. And then you have even more emotion. You get born in a hungry realm of hungry ghosts. So stinginess actually takes you there, because stinginess overcomes goodness. And if you have very, very little logic, you fall into the hells. Okay? All right. So, where were we in our story? Okay, so then Subha asked the Buddha what happened. So the Buddha explained. He went by the house, and that's what the Buddha confirmed that yes, that's why he talked to the dog. The Buddha confirmed he talked to the dog that way. So then Subha said, well, my father has been born in the Brahma world. Why do you have to demean my father by addressing the dog in his name? So the son was very sure that the father had been reborn in the Brahma world. Why? Because the father was a very good Brahmin. He followed the rituals of the Brahmin religion. He probably also supported in whatever way he could, given his stinginess. But he believed in Lord Brahma. That's the most important thing. He believed in Lord Brahma, and he would do his prayers to Lord Brahma. And if you look around the world, that's what people do. Whenever something happens and someone loses a loved one, if you read the reports in the newspapers, they will always say, oh, my loved one is in heaven now, or God has taken my precious one away. They hold on to this belief, although they have no way of knowing if it's true or not. But it's a belief that we have. Even Buddhists do it. When someone dies, they say, oh, he's been reborn in the Pure Land. Like, how do you know? You don't really know. Or they hold on to signs, for example, like the part of the head is still warm, the feet is cold, and other things like the body is very soft. They are kind of related, but until you have the ability to know for sure, you don't know. You're just guessing. So Buddhists do it as well. So he said, Subha said, his father carried out sacrifices, fire rituals, he did all kinds of ceremonies, and so he's definitely born in the radiant Brahma world. Okay. Then another version of the story, Subha then asked the Buddha, he said, the way you address the dog, you said, do you know the dog's past life? And the Buddha discouraged him. He said, please don't ask me that question. And he asked again. And then the Buddha said, please don't ask me that question. And he asked again. The Buddha said, please don't ask me that question. Then he asked a fourth time. And then the Buddha said, yes, your the dog is actually your father from your past life. Your father has been reborn as the dog. Okay, so obviously Subba doesn't believe the Buddha. So the Buddha told him this. He said, Subba, have you ever heard of certain treasures that belong to your father and no one knows where those treasures are? So Subba said, yes. There are four. A gold necklace, which is very precious. A pair of slippers, also very precious, I guess maybe made of gold or something. Then a special shawl and 1,000,000 worth of gold coins. And my father died and he didn't tell anyone where they're kept. So the Buddha said, okay, so what you can do is this. You go home and you prepare some delicacies, something like milk rice without water, just milk and rice. And it says, you feed it to your dog and allow your dog to sleep. And then when your dog is sleeping, you whisper in your dog's ear. It says, Father, please show me where your treasure is buried. So when Subba heard this story, it was said that he was glad about two things. He said if the story was true, then he would get the treasure. But if the story was false and it did not work out like the Buddha told him, then he could say that the Buddha was a liar. Okay, that the Buddha is saying things that are not true. So he went home. Okay, he prepared a delicacy for the dog. So the dog ate. And when the dog was full, the dog went to sleep. So he whispered in the dog's ear, say, Father, can you show me where you hid the treasure? And the dog immediately got up and went to a spot and just sat there. So he had his servants dig up the spot, and it was true. He found the four treasures that they could never find. So then Subba now started to believe in the Buddha. So Subba went to the Buddha, and as the Buddha saw him approaching, the Buddha told the monks, he says, you all see Subba now, the son of Todiya? He says if he were to pass away at this time, after the breakup of his body, he would arise in a happy destination in heaven. This is because he's happy because he found his treasure, he's happy, and he had a faithful thought towards me. And because of that, after the breakup in the body, he will re-arise in a happy destination in heaven. So there's a lot more to the story, which I'll come to later. Okay, but before that, I want to share this sutra. This sutra, I call it Thoughts and Prayers. Okay, that's not the actual name of the sutra, but I call it Thoughts and Prayers. Why? Okay, let me share with you. This is Ita Sutta. I don't remember what Ita means. Agreeable. Ita in Pali means agreeable, or what people like. Yeah, that's a long version, what people like. So it starts this way. This is a very short sutra. It says, Anatta Pindika. I won't explain who he is, but he's a very famous lay person. Anatta Pindika, the householder, went to the Blessed One. Okay, maybe I just explain a bit. Anatta Pindika is known as the foremost of the Buddha's lay disciple. And he donated the Jeta Grove to the Buddha and his monks. And how he donated it was that he wanted to buy the land, but the person who owned the land didn't want to sell the land. The person was Prince Jeta. So he gave Anatta Pindika a very unreasonable request. He said, if you can cover the whole ground with gold coins, then I will sell it to you. And Anatta Pindika did exactly that. And then the Prince Jeta had no choice but to sell it to Anatta Pindika for the value of all those gold coins. So it's called the Prince Jeta Grove that was donated, that he bought and donated to the Buddha and his monks. Okay, so that's him. It says, so he went to the Buddha, said hello, and then the Buddha told him, he said, these 5 things, householder, are welcome, agreeable, pleasant, and hard to obtain in the world. Which 5? Okay, can any of you guess what are 5 things that everybody wants? Okay, it's a hypothetical question, but you can think in your head. All right, what are 5 things that everyone wants? Okay, All right, enough thinking. Okay. Buddha says, long life is welcome, agreeable, pleasant, and hard to obtain in this world. That's very true. No one wants to die young, die before their time is over. It can also mean you don't die before you think you're ready. Although that's not a very logical thing if you think about it. Long life also includes good health. Okay, no point living long if you have a miserable, unhealthy life. So long life here, you can include long and healthy life. Okay, pleasant, long life. Number 2, beauty. Everyone wants to, I don't know about being beautiful or handsome, but at least you don't want to be ugly, right? Okay. Beauty also means people like you. Okay, you are generally liked by people. That's what beauty is for. You're attractive. Number 3, happiness. Happiness is welcome. Everyone wants happiness. No one wants to be unhappy. Okay, so happiness includes other things such as wealth, for example. Being able to afford the things that you want, enjoy a good life. That's part of happiness. Okay, so happiness means good life as well. Number 4, status. Status means you are kind of someone, people listen to you, people don't dismiss you or look down on you, what's another word for status? Maybe
Fame,
influential. Yes.
fame,
Fame.
yeah,
Fame may be, okay, fame may be part of it, but just fame alone may not, you can be infamous. Yeah. So status is a more wholesome version of fame, I guess. You're also famous, but for all the right reasons. Okay. Okay. So status. And number 5, rebirth. Okay. Status also means you're kind of like intelligent. People respect you for the things that you say. So that's status. And number 5, rebirth in heaven. Rebirth in heaven means you're not afraid of dying. The thought of dying, or when you are about to die, you are not filled with fear or terror, or not knowing what's going on, what's going to happen. Okay, so the Buddha says these 5 things is welcome, agreeable, pleasant, and hard to obtain in this world. So Ron asked about popular. Yeah, so I guess status, maybe beauty and status makes you popular, well-liked. Yeah, well-liked. Okay. Then the Buddha says, now I tell you, these 5 things are not to be obtained by reason of prayers or wishes. That's why I say thoughts and prayers. It says if they were to be obtained by reason of prayer or wishes, who here would like them? So you can't argue with the Buddha's logic, right? If prayers or wishes really work, everyone will have long life, everyone will be famous or have be influential, no one will be ugly. What's the other list? Let me go back. Everyone will be happy. But if you look at the state of the world right now, no, that's not what's going on. Actually there are more people who are suffering than I guess. You look at the news, it's filled with more people who are having a very, very hard life compared to people who are actually satisfied, right? So Buddha goes on to say, it is not fitting for the disciple of the noble ones who desires long life, beauty, happiness, status, and rebirth in heaven to pray for it or to delight in doing so. Instead, the disciple of the noble ones who desires long life should practice the path of practice leading to long life. In so doing, it will attain long life, either human or divine. So in the rest of the sutra, which I'm not going to share, the Buddha uses the same formula. If you want long life, if you want status, you want fame, you have to do the things that bring you those things, not praying for it, not wishing for it. So it comes back to cause and effect. So that's one benefit of understanding the Dharma, is that you don't waste your time praying and wishing. Instead, you understand how to concentrate your efforts on things that will actually bear fruit, rather than wasting time. Okay, let me see, what's the time? 10:30. Okay, next I'm going to show you one slide, but we might not have enough time. So this is this sutra is called the Chula Kama Vibhanga Sutta. This sutta is the result of what happened next when Subha, whose father was reborn as a dog, as he found the treasure and he went to see the Buddha, he asked the Buddha some questions. And that encounter is this sutta. Okay. And the question he asked the Buddha was, he says, what is the cause and condition why human beings are seen to be inferior and superior? Meaning, you look at the world, why do some people have such blessings and some people don't? It says, for people are seen to be short-lived and long-lived, sickly and healthy, ugly and beautiful, uninfluential and influential, poor and wealthy, low-born and high-born, stupid and wise. Then the rest of the sutra is the Buddha explaining it, which we will, let me see, 10:32. Okay, we will, yeah, let's go to this. Let's go through the rest. It's just a short few slides. So the Buddha answers him by giving a very famous passage. It says, student, beings are owners of their actions, heirs of their actions. You can substitute action for karma. Okay, beings are owners of their karma, heir of their karma, born or originate from their karma, are bound to their karma, have their karma as their refuge. It is action that distinguishes beings as inferior and superior. So action, not thoughts and prayers, okay, but action. Says, I do not understand in detail. So he doesn't really understand, because until that moment, or until the conclusion of this sutra, he has never been a disciple of the Buddha yet. Okay, so he asked the Buddha for clarification. So the Buddha says, some man or woman kills living beings and is murderous, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless to living beings. Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination and perdition, even in hell. So if you're asking what in perdition means, given the context of this passage, I would say perdition, you can safely take it to mean being born in the realm of the hungry ghost. Okay, I might be wrong, but if it's not hell, because it says even in hell, then it's the realm of hungry ghosts. And the Buddha says, but if on the dissolution of the body after death, it does not reappear in a state of deprivation. So if you don't fall down, he says, in an unhappy destination, in perdition, in hell, but instead comes back to the human state. So even if you do a lot of killing, but you also have other things to balance it out, and you come back as a human. He says, then wherever he is reborn, he is short-lived. You won't have a long life. This is the way, student, that leads to short life, namely, one kills living beings and is murderous, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless to living beings. So that's why some people, they have, it seems that there's nothing wrong with their lives. They seem to be surrounded by luxury, wealth. Some are famous, they seem to be better off than most of the population in the world, but they have a short lifespan. So this is why. Then the Buddha gives the opposite. He says, if someone does not do those unwholesome deeds, does not kill, but instead is gentle and kindly. So loving kindness, okay? In other words, you have loving kindness and you abide compassionate to all living beings. Okay, Melinda, you hear that? Melinda and Ron? Okay, you have loving kindness and you have compassion to all living beings. Then, upon death, you reappear in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. So either you go up to the heavens, or if you are reborn as a human, your outcome is very good. Okay, all right. Then the Buddha says, but if he's not born in the heavens, he says, wherever he is reborn, you will have long life. Okay, so the remainder of the sutra is the same, but the Buddha gives the cause and effect for the reasons for the question that Suba asked, which was sickness. Okay, why do some people don't enjoy good health? That is because in past lives they injure beings. Okay, why are some people ugly? Ugly also means in character, ugly. Okay, it's not just how you look. All right. It says if you have an angry and irritable character, even when criticized a little, you get offended, you become angry, you become hostile, you become resentful, and you display anger, hate, and bitterness, guess what? You're going to be ugly in your future life. Even in your present life, you have that kind of personality. No one's going to, in anyone's view, you are ugly, you know. If someone is uninfluential, that means people don't listen to you. You have no way to convince people, no sway. People see you as not important. You know, for example, there are certain incidents in this world that, for example, like that submarine that sank, and a lot of resource and effort was put into trying to figure out what's going on, trying to help save the people in that vessel. Whereas there are a lot of migrants on boats in the seas, and sometimes the boat capsizes, and it seems like a lot of times a lot of people don't really care about those other lives, you know. So that's one way of looking at being influential or being uninfluential, is how important people take you to be. So how do you become uninfluential? If you have a lot of jealousy, if you're envious of people, you resent, and you are unhappy about whenever someone gains something, you know, they profit, they have honor, they have respect, reverence, salutations. If it makes you feel unhappy that other people get that, then you become uninfluential in your future life. Okay, then we have one more slide to go to, or two more. How do you get to become pure? Well, you are stingy. Okay, you don't offer food, drink, clothing, carriages or vehicles, garlands, scents, unguents, baits, dwelling, and lamps to recluses or Brahmins. Then in your next life you become pure. But not just to recluses or mendicants or Brahmins, but in general. Okay, you don't help people. Then of low status or birth, if you're arrogant, you're obstinate, you don't want to change yourself, you're stubborn, you do not pay homage to one who should receive homage, you do not rise up for one in whose presence you should rise up, you do not offer a seat to one who deserves a seat, you do not make way for one who you should make way for, you do not honor, respect, revere, and venerate one who should be honored, respected, revered. Then you, in your next life, because you don't respect people who should be respected, then that's what you create for yourself. Then the last one is lack of wisdom. This is why I always ask you all, if you have any questions. How do you get reborn into someone without any wisdom? Well, you don't visit a mendicant, a recluse, or a Brahmin, a wise person, and you don't ask questions like what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, what is blamable, what is blameless, what should be cultivated or practiced, what should not be practiced, what kind of action will lead to your own harm and suffering for a long time, and what kind of action will lead to welfare and happiness for a long time. If you don't show an interest and take action in those areas, then, you know, because you don't value wisdom, then in your next life you're born without wisdom. So having known all this, okay, the benefits of the Dharma is that we can be in control of our future rebirth. The ability to steer how and who we become depends on all of us right now. It is not, for most people who don't know any of this, and they just go through life based on their habits or based on what they believe is true, it's kind of like gambling, you know, it's kind of like rolling dice. You just don't know what hand you're going to end up with. But for all of us who know, okay, one of the benefits of knowing the Dharma, and because you know the Dharma, you understand about cause and effect, and you know how to avoid unskillful or unwholesome actions and thoughts and speech. This is something that you can feel good about. Okay, these are the benefits of the Dharma. Okay, so now let me see what's the time. Oh, I'm coming to the end. Okay, so Melinda, you want to ask your question again?
Okay. I find it not easy to practice loving kindness compared with other forms of giving of offerings. I find it loving kindness, if it is not a good thought come out from your mind in the first place, it is already contradict this sentence, loving kindness already.
Okay. Well, the fact that you have that you're aware, okay, that you're aware is not easy, and that you're aware that sometimes you have thoughts that are contrary to loving kindness is part of the practice. That's how you begin. Okay. And loving kindness is a practice. So it's not like you want loving kindness, you can just develop loving kindness. It's not so easy, which is why we are spending so much time on generating loving kindness. And part of the things that we're going to cover in future classes has to do with what we just read about, like stinginess, jealousy, and envy. We're going to cover it through the 4 Brahma Viharas, which loving kindness is the first one. So after loving kindness, there's compassion. So loving kindness means you're happy with yourself. You have confidence in yourself. Why? Because you know what to do, what not to do, and you are doing those things. So it makes you very, very confident. So loving kindness. Then, after you generate loving kindness for yourself, which is a trick, then only are you able to generate loving kindness for other beings. All right, we'll come to that. And then when you have loving kindness for other beings, and when you wish them to be happy, when they encounter suffering, then compassion will arise naturally. Okay, so it's not like you just want compassion for people. You must first want them to be happy, and then when they're not happy, compassion arises. And then you have empathetic joy. Empathetic joy is when other people have success, they encounter good things, you feel happy for them, you feel joy for them. You're happy when they're happy. So that's empathetic joy. And then finally, there's equanimity, which is the last one. The practice of this, especially loving kindness, enables you to get to the first dhyana, where your mind can calm down and concentrate. But to end up with loving kindness, first you have to figure out you have to recognize, take time and recognize all the good things in your life, especially related to the Dharma, or basically all the skillful things that you're doing in your life. Because those are things to be happy about, those are things to be proud of. And once you are able to generate loving kindness for yourself, you will have a sense of joy and happiness that is not dependent on things. That is not dependent on your relationships. That is not dependent on your job or your career. It's not dependent on your possessions. You know, even if you undergo suffering and hardship, you are still able to feel loving kindness or happiness for yourself. Why? Because loving kindness does not depend on all those things. Loving kindness depends on your virtue, on the goodness that you have done. Okay. So when you have loving kindness for yourself, which is what we are figuring out how to do, and the practice is different for everyone, which is why I'm covering in extensive all this. And also because if you want to get to the pure land, okay, loving kindness is very, very important to get to the pure land. Okay. So you have to figure it out for yourself. All right. All those things that we are doing, you have to actually put it into practice and see what works for you. So when you figure it out and you start feeling better about yourself, you start being a friend to yourself. You understand, you have limitations. Okay, you have bad habits, but you also know that you are working towards overcoming it. You may not be able to overcome it in this life, because if you could, we will all become Buddhas in one lifetime, because it's not so easy. But because you are a friend to yourself, you have patience with yourself. It's your bad habits. You don't want them, but sometimes you can't help it. So you are able to deal with it instead of making yourself feel worse. All right. So having this, to generate loving kindness for yourself is actually one of the most basic Buddhist practices for people. Yeah. And if you do your practices right, okay, if you're generous, if you treat people with respect and all that, usually loving kindness arises by itself. Yeah. But given the way things are in life right now, we have so many distractions. It can be difficult for loving kindness to arise, or for people to have the level of practice where for that to happen. Yeah. Okay. So if we find difficulty in wishing for other beings' happiness, it is because we have not developed it for ourselves yet. Okay. It might take some time, but one good way of we are right now in our lectures, we're doing it the long way. Okay. Why? Because it's a lecture and we have to do it properly. But the short way is just sit down. Okay, before you recite your mantra, before you recite the Buddha's name, you just sit down and you just think about all the good things that you have done. Knowing the Dharma, being a disciple of the Buddha, knowing about cause and effect, knowing that it's not easy, but you try. That's a huge thing. It's not easy to change. That's why people say a leopard can't change his spots and you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Those sayings are there for a reason, but you're trying. What else? You are generous, or you try to be. Okay, you don't have to achieve all those things. Okay, like generosity on that. You just have to try. Shifu always say, just try your best. That's it. Just try your best. Yeah. If you think you can try harder, then okay, next time you try harder. You can motivate yourself, but just don't beat yourself up if you haven't tried. But you also have to push yourself, but don't push until you create afflictions for yourself. So practice is a very personal thing that you have to try out. And you just sit there and you think of all this, or you can write it down as well. For everyone it's different. Like I say, in Sri Lanka, there's a tradition, because they don't have the Pure Land tradition, where when you recite the Buddha's name, it means a lot of different things that will bring up wholesomeness and more logic than emotion in a person. So what they do in Sri Lanka is, upon the person's when the person is dying, they read out, or they remind the person of the good things that the person has done, so that the mind is calm and peaceful. So something like that. Okay, so what else people have? Okay, so Ron's question: can do a meal offering at any hour of the day? Yes, you can. Depending on what meal offering you do, you don't have to do it like in the in the temples, in the monasteries, what we do, but you can, in your heart, you can offer it to the Buddha. If you have, let me see, if you have like birds around your house or whatever animals, you can share with them. Thai monks do that. Whenever we take our food, the Thai monks, they, it's not they take extra food, okay? They just take the food that they're supposed to eat, but they don't finish the food. And they share the remaining food that they don't finish on purpose, say like with dogs around the monastery or with other animals. They do something like that. Can you do multi-meal offerings in a day? Yes. Yeah, that's what we do in the temple as well. We have the standard meal offering, and then in the evening, if they are lay people and they have meals like at CDTB, you will observe a monastic doing the proper, the offering to the spirits as well. But of course, you don't have to do that. So you can do, anytime you make a meal offering, you can remind yourself, maybe there are people who are starving in this world, So yes, you can. Randy, can we share Dharma Master talks to others? Yeah, if you want to share Dharma, that's a good way. Printing sutras, our lectures are all on YouTube, so you can do that. And then Ron said, this talk on cause and effect, please have it again in the future class and increase the examples. Yeah, I think we will definitely come back to karma and cause and effect as we go through the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to share something, Usher.
Yes.
If I may, I'll just take a quick minute here. So actually, I didn't feel loving kindness this morning, and the reason is because yesterday, I don't know, somebody broke the window on my car, the rear window, and I said, "What is this all about?" And I was really angry, and I didn't want to. Actually, I felt a lot of hostility, but I'm glad I attended your lecture today because this thing about soothing the burning dharma or something. What was the thing early in your lecture about the dharma?
Torment of burning and fever.
Yeah, I felt the burning and fever, and in the course of this class, it subsided, and I'm reminded to bring the best out of myself and not go at my hostile instincts. Thank you very much, Foster.
Okay, thanks for sharing, Ron. Yeah, it's not easy given our habits, our karma from our past lives and this lives. So some people have an easier time, some people have harder time, some people don't have problems with anger, but they have problems with other things. So everyone's different. But like how I told Melinda, the practice of loving kindness itself will show us where we need to work on. And it doesn't mean that we have to be perfect. Practice doesn't work that way. Practice takes a long time. Our habits have been accumulated over countless lifetimes. I'm not going to say I'm not saying it takes countless lifetimes to overcome our unwholesome habits. But as long as we try our best, or as long as we try, okay, trying our best also is not that easy, okay, but just try, and little by little, every step that we take counts a lot. All right, okay. So now let's transfer merit. Where's my slide? Okay, my palms together. Oh, wrong slide. Okay, dedication of merit. May every living being. Oh wait, hold on. If you look at the dedication on merit, there's a lot of loving kindness behind it as well. The wish for other beings to be happy. Okay, so maybe look at it from that angle as well. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Realm Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. All right, everyone, Amitofo, and we'll see you next week.
没错。